most indie studios never release their first game. And those that do, for the most part, never get to release a second one. They're trapped in this cycle of thinking that the game is too small. They compare it to others, and they think that they're not giving enough value to the players. They also have this immense scope that just keeps growing with every playtest, with every idea. It just goes and grows and grows, and they never know when they're going to finish. And they don't have time to organize all of this because they don't have plannings or meetings. After all, part of being an indie developer is trying to get away of all that corporate stuff, right? I feel identified with this because that happened to me. After 10 years working in software and game development, I opened a studio with a friend. We made our first demo, and it was great. We got 75,000 downloads. We got a publisher. We even got nominated as Best Game Latin America at Gamescom Latam 2025. With all that, we decided to make a system so we can stay being sustainable, making games every year and compounding through each game. But through that process, we got lost. We got attached to the idea of a game that we didn't prove if it was gonna be good enough. And after a year, we didn't have enough budget, and we had to close the studio. And that second game never came out. And that's why I'm here today, because I don't want that to happen to you. I want everyone to be able to make games for their life as long as they want, being sustainable. And that's what I'm gonna try to show you. Now, the first thing that we need to understand is the reality of the industry. 20,000 games are released every year. And for most of them, they make very little money regardless of their quality. It's not a matter of that they fail, but the tragedy is that they never get to have a second chance. And most of this happens because people think of their first game as the game instead of having a system. Because of this, they have poor production, and they don't have a plan from the beginning all the way to release that can raise the possibilities of them being successful. Because of this, they end up having projects that should be shorter, way longer in time. The return on investment ends up being way shorter because they spend too much time in budget, and then they end up burning out and losing all their resources. This, unfortunately, is what most indie studios do. And from those, just a little tiny bit get to be lucky enough to succeed. However, there are some studios and some people that are breaking that mold. They are successful with another kind of mindset. I've been studying some of those studios and some of those people. For example, we have Adam Saltzman. He made 13 games in 2025 alone. We have studios like Strange Scaffold that makes a game every 6 months, and every game is better than the one before. We have studios like Sock Pop that has a subscription model where people pay $3 a month and they get access to all their games. And they make games so quick as of every 2 weeks. All of these studios have a different way, a different style, but the same mindset: shipping often. This way, they learn faster, they grow an audience, they compound with each one of their games, and that way they have less financial risk. To understand this, we have to kind of change our mentality from having this idea of having a masterpiece of a game and change it to having a master plan. Instead of focusing on giving all your resources in one game and then not having enough time to recover if it doesn't work, you can have multiple smaller games that each one compounds, where you're more financially free, and each one gives you feedback for the next one so you can make them better. Now, I know that most it must happen that some of you still think that a smaller scope doesn't really mean the game is going to be better. Because with a smaller scope, it's difficult to get players to have enough content, to have enough experience through the game. But that's something I want to break right now from your thoughts. Because a smaller scope doesn't mean an unpolished game. It means deeper impact if it's done right. Because players remember depth, not length. If you have a game with a huge amount of different mechanics and none of them is the core thing of the game, you're just going to have a game that feels big but empty. But if you focus on having one mechanic, that there's always a mechanic that's what makes the game have the best experience, and you polish this to the core, then you're going to have the depth that you need. And your game is not going to take that long to finish. Now, understanding this, we need to make a plan from the beginning all the way to release, so the game that we're making has more possibilities of succeeding. I identified different stages that usually indie studios pass through, where in each of the stages they make some of these specific points. Now, if you're working on a game right now and you feel like you skip one of the stages, don't try to go backwards. Focus on the stage you're in and go and continue all the way to release. That's always going to be better. So, the first one would be the idea and the core vision. Here's where you're going to brainstorm everything you want for that game. It doesn't matter how big it is at the beginning. You're just going to brainstorm and have all your ideas. And once you have all of that, you're going to look for that core idea that you can communicate to the player. And once you have that, that's what you're going to work on. Cutting everything else out, at least at the beginning. That way, you're going to have the habit from the start of not letting your game get hyper complex through time. Once you have that idea, it's time for prototyping. A quick and dirty prototype. No fancy art, no fancy code. I know a lot of people think that they need the fancy art to even show the experience they want to show to the players, but you can always use placeholders that look good enough, even if they're copyrighted. You're just going to use this to show your experience and understand if the players like the mechanics and the experience itself. It's not going to be marketed yet. Then it's time to go to the validation and commitment. To validate your idea, just having your game being played for a couple of friends or your mom saying, honey, the game is really fun, that's not enough. You need to show it to as many people as you can. Maybe go to an event where people can show their games and show your game there. Organize your own event. Tell your bigger group of friends to go play games with you, and then you show your game as well. And once they're playing, you're going to see what they're doing. You're not just going to listen if they say they like it or not. You're going to check if they're actually interested in the mechanics, in how it feels. You're going to check if they're having fun until you can say, this game is fun. Not, I like this game, but this game is fun enough to be able to exist. And then you go and commit to making your game, to making the vertical slice. Now, a vertical slice is from the whole game, one piece of it that already shows everyone exactly how the rest of the game is going to be through one small lens. It's not a normal demo, which means that now in this step, you need a good production system where you're taking track of everything, where the code is modular enough for you to be able to reproduce that to make the rest of the game. This way, you can also predict easier how your game is going to be in the end and when it's going to finish. It's easier for you to know how much budget you're going to need. And the most important thing is that you can keep the promise to the players. Because this vertical slice, when you start making it, it's when you're going to do your store page. You're going to have your Discord channel. You're going to have your socials. Everyone's going to start looking at the game and the path it's going through to get to that vertical slice. And you're going to start having fans. You need this for then convert those fans into the first players and the people that it's going to really scream about your game. And you need to have that promise correctly so they know that what they're playing is what they're going to get in the end. Once you have all this in place, by the way, this is the moment when you can start looking for funding if that's what you want. Because now you have a community, you have people playing the game, you know that they like the game, and that's exactly what people that can give you money want to hear. However, regardless of if you get funding or not, you should still plan the full production of your game. Because only about 5% of any indie studio ever gets funding. It shouldn't be the main strategy to finish the game. If you made it all the way to the vertical slice without that, you probably don't even need it. Of course, if you get it, nice. You get to do more marketing, to polish more your game if you want, but you don't need it to finish the game. So you start your production, and once you're in production, you start thinking about your next game. You already start the idea, the prototype of the next game, because you already know you're going to finish the first one. You already had a vertical slice and people are already playing it. This is very important because otherwise you're going to lose time after it's finished, or you're going to feel lost. And then you release your game. You celebrate everything you achieve with that game. You take note of everything you learn, and then you start working on the next one, because this is just the start of your master plan for being sustainable.